Welcome back, everybody. I'm Phil. This is the Drop Air Perspective. Now, we're still talking about the heartbreaking situation of Charlie Kurk's assassination. But what is rubbing salt into the wounds, not so much of progressives, but the family of Charlie, is how the vile left influencers have been celebrating his death at the hands of this absolute coward. It's just an absolute joke. But it's not surprising that they're showing their true colours. They're meant to be the tolerant left. Yet there's nothing tolerant about them at all. If you disagree with them, they want you dead. They call you a Nazi. It's okay to punch Nazis, apparently, and even kill them. This has all been started by the Democrats, the high leaders, Chuck Schumer, AOC and the likes, and the media, MSNBC, CNN, and the list goes on of all the leftist media groups just calling any and every conservative a bigot, fascist, Nazi, a racist, whatever they want to come up with, whatever the buzzword is of the day. Just because we don't agree with their fucked up ideas. Yeah. Let's go and see what some of these demented leftards are saying.
And I want to start off just by playing a little clip. This infuriates me, this endless repetition of, oh, he was a far right winger, he was extreme, as far, which the left use all the time. This is the ABC in Australia, how they announce the news. Have a listen.
He was a conservative influencer who campaigned for gun rights. Now, the American right-wing commentator Charlie Kurk has been shot and killed in what's been described as a political assassination.
So there you have it, James. All the cues, far right, guns, exactly what you were.
Sorry, people. I just realised that the
Disgusting.
It's so far removed from the real man.
It's removed from the real man, and I'll tell you, none of the people here on the ABC or any of the other people we're going to see here today spent any time listening to what Charlie Kurk had to say. They had no idea what his whole thing, which was about free speech and Socratic dialogue, which are two things that the left hates, because the left's argument techniques are shut up or we'll smash your store window.
Shut up or we'll shoot you.
Yeah, shut up or we'll shoot you. That's their technique. And it reminds me so much also, like when...
Simply because all of their arguments fall short and the only way that they can respond is violence, because they claim to be intellectuals, but they're all fucking morons.
Kim McLean was the managing director of the ABC, had that whole line about ABC, about Joe Rogan, when he was giving the press club speech. It was clear he'd never listened to a minute of the man. But it's this sort of thing here.
Exactly, but I want to ask Rita about one of our politicians here, a so-called independent environmentalist, Zali Steggall, at a beautiful electorate on Sydney's beaches. What happened there? She seemed to be quite like some of the controversial posts about Charlie Kurk's death.
Yes, she did. She liked one by a leftist influencer that has been deleted. This is how bad this post was. Even this far leftist, what's her name, Hannah Ferguson, she deleted it, but not before Zali Steggall liked it. And it was a post that was seeking to rationalise this assassination, saying that, sometimes violence is necessary. Does this murder advance the leftist agenda? No, it doesn't. But, I can understand why people... It was an absolutely despicable, morally bankrupt post. The ideas in it, I think, you know what? I actually don't mind seeing stuff like this, because I think sunlight is the best disinfectant.
Yeah, we know what they're thinking.
And when people show you who they are, you believe them. And when people go and share this disgusting
Exactly.
content when they like it. Zali Steggall needs to explain this. Zali Steggall needs to explain why she endorsed this post. If it wasn't her, if it was a staff member, what is she doing about it? She hasn't answered any questions. We've gone to her office and she has refused to provide any sort of explanation.
she won't.
And Secretary of State Marco Rubio has said people who indulge in this sort of disgusting antics in the aftermath of Charlie Kirk's murder, they're not welcome in the US. So we might have some very high-profile individuals who will not be allowed into the US. And I can say there won't be too many Americans who will be upset about that. I mean, sure, there will be some on the left, but I think most Americans don't want people who can sit there and try to rationalise a brutal murder, a man being shot and killed in front of his family because he was having a debate. Why would you want those sorts of people in your country?
And let's make the point, James, that Zali Steggall replaced former Prime Minister Tony Abbott in his electorate. So this is a wealthy Sydney electorate. Her entire campaign, her entire political position is climate change and we've got to save the planet and all this and look after the kids and so on. But here we have liking the argument that violence is acceptable in a political format. I would say...
Now, I'm sure that she wouldn't be agreeing with that if the violence comes towards her. Just saying.
I would say this is the thing that's so ironic to me here, because I've seen lots of politicians in the U.S. and plenty here too, and plenty of public figures now say, geez, whatever our side is now, do we need to worry more about security? So the idea that you're a politician of any stripe, I don't care whether you're right or left or as she is, a teal, the idea that you would in any way be seen to be countenancing any sort of argument that says, well, maybe this one time a little bit of political violence is okay.
I think it applies to their games. This is why the left play these games, because they know it's a one-side battle.
Yeah.
They're not scared. When you're a leftist, no matter how far left, radical, nutbag you are, you can go to any university campus in this country or America and you will not fear giving a speech. You will not fear being shot, being bombarded with abuse, being chased off campus, having those who come to hear you be violently attacked. You don't have that. You don't have that fear as a leftist. Just look at what's happening in our own country, never mind America. It is a one-sided fight. So, I'm not surprised we've got leftist politicians indulging in this sort of moral decay because it doesn't apply to them. She will not fear that. And now
she won't. No, I'm sorry.
And I'm not saying she should fear it.
I'm not saying she should fear it either. But you see, history is a funny thing, right? History is a really funny thing. And there have been plenty of examples in history when people have thought, oh, no, I'm off with the good guys on the left here, and they're going to send their violence somewhere else. And I tell you what, eventually you wind up to the right of the people who got the guns, and then you are in strife. And this, I'm not saying that's going to. I'm not saying that's going to happen in Australia. Pray it doesn't happen in Australia. But the point is that once you start to normalize, it's this whole normalization of political violence.
I want to carry on.
Okay, go on with this here for a second, because there's also this other sort of move, and it's, again, intellectually bankrupt. And we need to talk about these sorts of intellectually bankrupt defenses for this murder, and where they're trying to minimize this into kind of just the background noise of life. Oh, well, somebody got shot. Babies are dying in Gaza. Somebody starved here, this sort of thing. And how can you be mad about Charlie Kirk when all of these other things that we on the left are concerned about are happening? What that is doing, it is a conscious effort to minimize the horror of what happened so that it can happen again. This is what is being set up here. It is sinister. It is evil. The surface has been scratched. We see what's underneath it there.
I want to go on, Rita, to the way in which these people come out of these universities, come out of this kind of hard left indoctrination centres, and then go on to either become podcasters or work in politics or staffers. And this is the long march through the institutions. I'll be talking about that later. But have a listen to someone who is supposedly an influencer in Australia, Clementine Ford. She was a journalist for a while, probably still thinks she is. But have a listen to the level of not only, in my opinion, depravity, but kind of absolutely ridiculous and muddled thinking from this individual speaking about Charlie Kurk.
Like, his most ferocious male fans are so fucking gay for him. They're all crying out of their penises in my messages. You're so mean. You're a fucking fat. You have no morals.
You don't have any morals, you fat piece of shit. You are an absolute vile human being, and you will die alone with your cats.
Charlie's dead. Off, losers. Just remember, he died doing what he loved, defending guns. He took a bullet for the cause, and according to Charlie Kurk, a few deaths a year from guns is a small price to pay.
Now, were you going to pay the price for your cause? Would you? I seriously doubt you would, Clementine. You're the first to have a fucking cry when someone has a go at you online, you whining piece of shit. Wake up to yourself. You live in a fucking bubble.
To defend the Second Amendment. So what more could he possibly ask for? It's a tribute and legacy to the pointlessness of his life.
So, I mean, James, just reiterate what you said before, because
she is a pointless individual. And unlike Charlie, she will not be remembered for longer than a couple of weeks. Once she's dead and buried in the ground, no one is going to give a flying fuck about her. There's not going to be memorials. There's not going to be university halls named after her. Unlike Charlie, who is beloved worldwide.
she illustrates that very point. They attack the individual relentlessly. They try and paint him as some morally depraved person who gets
Not
what
only
he wants.
that.
That's the trick of the left, to make kids feel their entire moral universe gets exploded. The new morality is, if you're of the left, then you can get away with doing whatever you want because you're attacking
Before
the evil
James
right.
jumps in, no normal human being, no one with any sort of sense of rationality would look at that video and come out of it thinking Charlie Kurk is the depraved one. The depravity there is clear. That is just so loathsome, so absolutely vile. How you could be that full of hate?
Well, I'll play you let me play you another one. Here's another Australian influencer, so-called Abby Chatfield. This is before the assassination, but it's only a couple of weeks ago when she appeared on to be advocating.
She was.
There you go.
She was.
Listen. Have a listen.
Let's have a listen.
Americans, when are you going to do it? Why isn't it already done? Every day there's another happening, right? Awful for your country. Awful, right?
I've never wanted to slap a woman before.
Why don't we redirect this energy
She deserves a big slap right
to something
across
else?
the fucking cheeks.
You know? There's all these incels that are going, oh my God. So they go and do, you know what would actually make people respect you a little bit and make people want to you? Is if...
Sorry. I would never fuck you. Never. Even if I was on a fucking deserted island and it was only me and her stuck there alone. She is just an absolute vile piece of shit with the body of a fucking 5 and the face of a fucking 3. She thinks she's fucking hot, but she is a vile piece of shit that just makes her as ugly as fuck. The ugliness just shines through. There's no inner beauty in this bitch. She is just full of hate, vile, and disgust for anyone who disagrees with her.
He did it.
So this ridiculous woman, in fact, it turns out it was a hardcore leftist whose partner, it appears, was transitioning. This was no incel that committed this murder, allegedly. James, the sheer ridiculous notion of what she was saying, but more importantly, this endless calling for violence from young people of the left, even here in Australia, is sickening.
Pick up on something else too. You know, like that mocking that both of those did of people who were supporters of Donald Trump or Charlie Kurk or whoever. The irony, the absolute irony. You know, you've got Abby Chatfield and Clementine Ford, these examples of normal humanity, going out there and attacking people on the right, conservatives, fans of Trump, fans of Charlie Kurk, fans of whomever, as being these, weirdos and so on. I mean, I'm sorry. Put your average group of Charlie Kirk supporters next to your kind of purple-haired, pierced people who are all out there on the left here, and I'll tell you which side is the weird one. But let's put that aside. Let's put aside the personal attacks. That whole thing with Chatfield there at the end, that is precisely what I'm talking about. And these videos that they're, sending straight into people, talking one-on-one. Do it, do it, do it. Fascist, fascist, fascist. Kill, kill, kill. You'll get love, you'll get love, you'll get love. This is such a sinister cult-like behavior. It is really shows, I think, the left as a really sinister cult when it goes down into these areas.
Well, I'll just be talking later about how this is tipping into a spiritual war as well as a political war, and I think you've touched on that there, James. But they're not alone. They might be the extremists, but Rita, this is what Barry Cassidy, supposedly one of our, left-wing, supposed sensible journalists or sensible TV commentators, top of the ABC for many, many years. He was out there basically saying what you were saying earlier, mocking people for saying that this was some kind of right-wing, Trump-supporting guy. Cassidy was out there saying Trump's an embarrassment, and Cassidy was out there basically accusing the killer of being a right-winger who thought Charlie Kirk wasn't to the right enough. That's how deranged even the so-called intelligentsia in Australian left-wing politics are, Rita.
Exactly.
Well, we're not a very bright country, if that's the... Barry Cassidy, I mean, you would think he would be old enough to know better. It's one thing to have these young, demented banshees just mouthing off for attention on Instagram and TikTok, but some elder statesman of Australian journalism falling for this craziness. And you've got to think, how can you post? He deleted the post, so do we give him credit for that? I didn't see an apology or a correction, but he did delete it, but not before it had circulated. And their readiness, their eagerness to believe the unbelievable, that it must be a Trump supporter who shot the man who helped to get Trump elected. Yeah, think about that.
Not so bright, like you said,
exactly.
James.
Well, no, exactly. But I mean, this is what passes for mainstream thought now on the left. I mean, the ABC, as you say, Barry Cassidy, eminent doyen of that kind of sort of Balmain sort of journalism that he committed. I would be very interested to see next week's Media Watch to see whether or not they take on.
Are you kidding me?
Of course they won't. Of course they won't.
It will just feature this show saying that our reaction is the problem. We're pouncing.
We're pouncing.
On the issue. We're politicizing.
You'll be talking pouncing.
I'm talking about pouncing later on in the show.
Political murder. I mean, how dare we?
Don't know how that works. Politicizing political assassination. It's already politicized, but I guess that's the logic of the left. Yeah. I'm going to leave it there for the moment, guys. If you haven't already, please like, share, and subscribe. And
Joining us now from the centre of the...
sorry about that. And I will see you again next time. Catch you later, guys.